Make sure it's soldered on correctly. If any of these pins are loose, that means that it is not soldered on correctly. It's likely a problem. The cup can't see this quite as well as I'd like in the camera, as far as I can zoom out. And then those legs screwed at all. It still could be a problem with the chip. I'm going to check these filters right here. Turning out those are good. I will replace this chip just because these chips are going to get faulty. Even some of them, when you get them brand new, they can be faulty. So I'm going to replace this one with a known good chip. That's a chip that I know for sure is good. And I'm going to rule out this chip. Before I replace the HDMI chip, I do want to check all these filters. These filters have a coilless wire between this pin and this pin. So there should be continuity here, but there should not be continuity between here and here. And there should also not be continuity between the filters themselves. So going to resistance mode on my multimeter. So the beep means that there is a connection between here and here. And there is. I'll lose my lead on this filter and jump over to this filter. There's a connection there. There is there. There's no connection there. But there is there. And that is how it is supposed to be. Okay, there's absolutely no problems on these filters. Now it's time to replace the HDMI chip. So now I'm just going to come in with my hot air, heat up the chip, then I'll place the new chip, and heat it up again, all the sides on. I'm going to start to get clean. There we go. Now I'm going to come in with the new chip. I will put on some fresh fluff. And I'm going to tack down through the leg, and then I'll come back in with the hot air. Finish the job. Then I need to make sure everything is lined up, and it is. I'm going to tack down some more of the leg. Now I'm going to bring the hot air in, push down just a little bit on the middle of the chip, and that will enable all the legs to push down into solder, and I'll remove the hot air and let it harden. I need to come in with my pick and push on the leg gently, enough to make sure that it is soldered on all the way. Okay, I'm all with this. Now that this is soldered on correctly and we look at this chip, let's put this motherboard back in and test the console and see if it'll show display. I have this PS4 together just enough to test it, and I'm going to plug it in and see if it'll work. There we go, you think it's going to work? Let's find out. So we have the white light again, unfortunately it's still not working, so now we're going to just take it back apart and see if I can figure out what's going on. I'm still pretty worried about this APU. I think that might be the problem, the blue light set, but I still want to check out the rest of the HDMI system and just make sure there's nothing else missing. Okay, so I know it doesn't look like it, but I've been testing and working on this thing for several hours now, and unfortunately I just cannot figure out what the problem is. Usually a white lighted desk console, I can fix pretty much every time. I've been about 99.9% successful with white lighted desk consoles. Unfortunately, this one, I'm not. I've replaced the HDMI chip 2 times. I replaced the HDMI port just to make sure I have an HDMI port tester that I use, and that showed that it's good. I checked all the filters, all the capacitors, all the diodes, and there are absolutely no problems on any of the HDMI circuitry. So unfortunately, I think this one must be an issue of a blue lighted desk, except for it still does show the white light. This is the only PS4 out of the thousands that I've repaired that I've seen this specific issue with, and unfortunately I just haven't figured out for sure what's wrong or how to fix it. Right now I'm chalking it up to probably the APU, but unfortunately I just can't say for sure. If you know of a repair person that has a YouTube channel that wants a little bit of a challenge, let me know down in the comment section, and maybe I can finish it. Now that I'm giving up on the PS4, it's time to look at the special edition Xbox One S. Before I get started repairing this Xbox One S, I want to take a minute to talk about our sponsor for today's video, JLCCTV. JLCCTV is the best place to get your custom circuit boards printed, as they offer a low price and very high quality. You can get 4-layer PCBs for only $2 and free FET assembly for 4-layer PCB orders, but the offer ends on December 25. See all the details at the link in the description. You can make an order for custom-made PCBs right on their website at jlcctv.com. The website is easy to use, the circuit board will get printed fast, and also shipped to you very quickly. So if you need custom PCBs printed, I recommend JLCCTV, and you can find a link to their website right in the description. Now let's see if I can get this Xbox One S fixed. So then what I have on this Xbox One S says clicking hard drive and no display. That is actually a fairly common problem with these. I'm assuming there's something more wrong with it, but the first thing I want to do is get it started up and just verify that those are the only problems. Then we'll get it taken apart. Alright, now let's see what it does when I try to start it up. Hope that's something going on. So this for sure has a hard drive issue, so I have to replace that first, and then after that replaced, then we'll see if there's anything else wrong. First things first, I'm going to remove this bottom part of the tape. For that, I'm going to use my 32 long screwdriver. Or you may remember that from other Xbox videos. So in here, I'm just deleting these little tabs. A tab there, a tab there, a tab there, and a tab up here. Next, I'll remove all the green G10 screws. Now with those removed, we can remove this outer shell just by pulling here inside. Now with that removed, we can remove all the silver screws, and then also this little board over here, and this little board right here. This is the hard drive. It is a 1 terabyte hard drive, and I have another 1 terabyte hard drive that I've already installed the Xbox software onto, but my feeling is there's probably going to be something else wrong. Let's see what happens. I'm just going to set the hard drive in here, just like that, and I'll plug the power button back in, and then we can power it up just like this, see if we get anything else. And will it show a display? Let's find out. So let it sit there for a while. I even restarted it and there's still just nothing on the screen. So I think it's time to dig into this a little bit more. I need to remove all the components on top of the motherboard and take a close look at the HDMI system and see if we can figure out what's going on. And now time to have a closer look at this entire HDMI system and see if we can figure out what might be going on. Alright, so here we are in the microscope. First thing I want to do is check one of the sampling HDMI port itself. I'm going to move while I do this. I'm going to restart the board. This thing's all perfect. The next thing is going to check these filters. So I'm going to set my multimeter in ohms mode. I'll put one probe here, and one probe here, and then one probe here, and one probe here, and so on across all of these, and there should be a DC time. So just press probe one more time. Good. Okay, so all of those are good. Now it's time to look over at this little silver ball grid array chip, also known as PGA. These are fairly common faults on the Xbox One X, but not very common on the X. The ground side of the capacitor is not. That's what it should do. It should be no resistance to ground on one side and very high on the other side. Usually these black ones are lifted. I don't believe think it's trying to possibly exporting this guy. I'm going to get another board and see what the other board tests like and see if that's normal or not. So here we go with the different motherboard. Once again, I'm just checking to see if there's any zero continuity ground on these pins. And it looks like there should be. Which is what I would expect. Okay, so I think what I'm going to need to do is put this chip onto the faulty motherboard, and we'll see if that'll fix it. So we've got that started on correctly. If you notice towards the end of that last clip, it was kind of like floating around right where it was. That means that all the solder balls underneath were liquid, and the hot air was just making it move around just a little bit. Solder has a good amount of surface tension, so if you get everything lined up right, it'll just stay just like it's supposed to, and then once you're in the heat, then it'll solidify, and you've got good solder. So now that this is replaced, let's see if there's still shorts on these resistors. Short, short, short. Okay. That's what we need. So I think at this point, it's ready to test. Here we go. Okay, and it looks like still no signal. I know for sure we have one of the problems fixed, two of the problems because we have the hard drive and that small VGA. But it looks like maybe there's more wrong, so I gotta get it all taken back apart and look at the motherboard again. You know, this chip is good, you know, these are good, you know, this chip is good. I've checked all the other little components around here. There's no shorts to ground and no other obvious issues. So unfortunately, I just don't see anything that's obvious that's wrong with this motherboard. I've checked absolutely everything on the HDMI circuit, as well as replaced the hard drive because the old hard drive was clicking, but unfortunately none of that fixed the issue on this Xbox One S. I really hate ending this video without being able to fix either of those consoles, so I've got one more that's a special edition PS4. Let me show you. This is a special edition Destiny PS4, and I'm going to have this fixed by the end of this video, one way or another. So the only thing I know about this PS4 is it has the blue light of death, so let's start it up and verify that, then we'll figure out how we can fix it. And it definitely does have the blue light of death, the light is just black and blue. So now let's take it apart, see what's going on, and see how we can fix it. I have not opened this up, so this is fresh from being stuff, and stickers have not been removed. So whatever we find in here is basically straight from being stuff. Now you might be wondering how I'm going to fix the blue light again. In other videos, I have said that that is not something that I fix or not something that is very fixable. It is true that I don't generally think the blue light is the problem. The fact that everyone is fuzzy or the solder gun won't accommodate you. Here goes. But so in this case, what I'm planning to do, if there's nothing we can do with this console, which I'm pretty sure there's not, I'm actually going to replace the motherboard. I've got several motherboards here that don't work. So what I have to do is repair the motherboards that I have, and then put the repaired motherboard into this. On this plate, give you a quick on this top stage. Now the motherboards that I have here, I don't know for sure are fixable either. So, hopefully we can figure out something with this. So what I'm doing is these are alcohol. A little bit, and then it'll just go right on. This works for almost anything. And there we go, that looks much better. Interesting, we got a random thermal pad right there. Alrighty then.
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, this is a Nissan Rogue. We're just fixing the AC because we just bought and guys, if you need to channel, please consider subscribing. We're just fixing the AC compressor. We replaced one from Amazon, but it's making a lot of noise, guys. So we gotta take it out. So we're gonna be doing a rebuild. We take off the old one, and we're gonna be just changing the clock from the Amazon one and put it into this one, back to the original one, and then go from there. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Thank you for like, share, and subscribe. And it's a Nissan Rogue.
So I see two different thermal pastes here. We've got this white thermal paste, and then underneath is the gray thermal paste from the factory. So I'm trying to figure out, it looks like there may not have even been enough thermal paste. Maybe there was. It's really hard to tell, but it looks like they definitely didn't clean it off very well. Overall, though, I don't think I see anything that would normally cause this PS4 to have a blue light death. So most likely there's just problems underneath the APU with faulty solder joints, or the APU itself could be bad. I actually don't notice any repairs that have been done on it. So maybe they did something to the disk drive on this one, but I don't see any other repairs that have been made. So I'm actually going to clean this out, put a little thermal paste on, and then I'm going to put it back together enough just to test it again. The reason for that is with those random thermal pads, it actually could cause a problem where the board doesn't sit down onto the heatsink how it should. I don't think that's the issue, but I'm going to test it just to make sure. Never know what might happen when you put in the perfect amount of thermal paste. There we go. So randomly my hand touched one of these RAM chips that is super, super hot. This is the RAM chip that is super hot. Actually, too, this color is brown on the top versus this one that's just like, if you watched a lot of my videos, then you'll know that the blue lighted death can be caused by the RAM chip. It's just not quite as common as the APU or solder joints under the APU. Unfortunately, this is one you just can't replace without remodeling it. Let's move on and see if we can get a motherboard that will work for this console. So here is the first motherboard that might work for this, especially with this PS4. It looks like at some point maybe it had some sort of liquid damage. It also was bent a little bit. We've got a bend in the whole thing, and even more of a bend right here. So I have no idea if this motherboard will work. But the main problem that we have right now is that the power supply connector has been torn off of the motherboard. So I'm going to fix that, and then we'll put this thing in and see if this motherboard will start up. And now with this soldered on nice and secure, we can put this motherboard in the PS4, hook up the power supply, and see if this one works. Maybe if I just put on the perfect amount of thermal paste, then it'll work. There we go. Here we go. Let's see if this motherboard works. Okay, restarting. That's normal. Yes. So it is giving me this error. That's because this hard drive is out of the old motherboard. So we'll need to reformat that. Then I also need to test everything else, like the disk drive, and make sure the controllers connect, just to make sure everything on the board is working. And everything's looking good so far. This goes in nicely. And there we go. It is now playing the disk. So luckily, this one is actually fixed. With the other two, I didn't fix. Unfortunately, that's just how it goes sometimes without any schematics or any details on the motherboard. There's only so far I can take it sometimes. Thank you to JLC PCB for sponsoring this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good one. I paid $650 for this box of customer returned electronics, but they were all listed as salvage, so these could all be broken, or they could work just fine. So first, we have these two Xbox Elite controllers. This one is in pretty rough shape. Overall, I paid $15 for these. So, I mean, I can make money on this one even just selling it just as is. But I'm not totally sure. These used to be really hard to find, the grips right here, so I'll have to see if I can find some of those. And then this one might actually be in decent condition. Let's see what's inside the box, though. We have another, oh, this one's like, ooh, this one's like sticky. Definitely have some problems with the rubber grip here. Actually, a lot. This thing is very used. Somebody has also been inside of it, so it's been taken apart. This is not looking good for this one. So we'll have a look at these in a minute. This one's definitely in better condition as far as like not being gross and sticky. All right, I think these are probably worth $15 because I can resell them just as is for more than that. But let's see what else we have here. Next, we have an Xbox Series S, and this came in a lot with two other Xboxes. Oh, that was liquid. That could be bad. And more over here. That's not a good sign. So probably some liquid damage in here. This came in a lot with two Xbox Series X's, and it was just one price for all of them. So dividing up the prices between the three, it comes out to $165 each. So there's probably a better, more accurate way to do the pricing, but I'm just dividing it equally between the three, so I paid $165 for this. And next we have an Asus ROG Ally. This one has definitely been well used. It's pretty dirty, but I don't see anything like broken on it, so that's possibly good news. This one I paid $213 for. These go for $350 to $450 on eBay, so depending on what's wrong, that hopefully is a good deal. Next, we have a PlayStation 5 disc edition. This is the 1215 model, and it's got the PlayStation 5 Slim. I paid $75 for this. This came in a lot of PlayStation portals, so I just divided up the total price between everything, and it comes to $75. And the last item is this Xbox Series X that I paid $165 for. This one is super dirty on the outside. You can only imagine what the inside looks like. Oh yeah, the fan is super dirty in this one. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to send this one over to Robert and Restores and have him do a cleaning on this. But this one's the last. So once he's done with the box of this, we're going to sell it. That was one of the items that we just lined up to say for this home video. That is this Xbox Series X. It looks just like a normal Xbox Series X, but if you look at the back, this one is a prototype. Now, I've never seen one of these in real life. I think there's one of Robert over at Restores right now, and we're going to start these two controllers and see if we can fix them. And we have controller number one, the non-stick controller. This one is a main manufacturer. Looking at the analog stick. They look good. Okay. Check all the buttons. Good. Good. I don't see any problems with this. Let's check these buttons on the bottom. Good. 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 And good. So I think the only problem with this is basically we've got the problem with the grip. And then obviously it doesn't actually have the buttons that go on like the two analog stick caps and then the D-pad cap. Let's set the sticky one and see what's going on with that one. I feel like that one's going to be not good. Okay, plug it in. It did buzz. And here it is up on the screen. Okay, we've got the left stick is not returning very well. So definitely a problem there. The A button and B button. I need to make a list of all the stuff we gotta do. Left, A, stick, A, and B button. Okay, what other things we have going on here? D button works. A button works. Check the buttons on the underside. Good. Good. And this E1 button. So, there we go. It actually works. It works if you push on it hard enough. So we're going to write that down as well. E1. Okay. Now we know what we need. need to do. Let's get this thing taken apart. This thing is so sticky. It's gotta be like some soda soap in here or something. Listen to this. Ew. Okay, that's so gross. This analog stick cover just fell off. Oh, that guy's pretty smashed up. Ooh, that one. Wow. Look at how it's smashed. That is crazy. So those we're definitely going to have to replace. Nothing too crazy going on under the back cover that I see. We will need to take this off and look at P1. Okay, definitely have some gunk here, but nothing too crazy yet. And everything is looking pretty good on that. I don't really see any major problems other than the analog sticks here. Pretty bad shape. There we go. And this piece is broken. Don't know, that shouldn't really matter, I don't think. But it is. Now this board can come off. And out just like that. And as expected, it is pretty dirty. So we got a lot of dirt and gunk over here. And yeah, these are pretty dirty too. Everything's just pretty dirty on this one. So the buttons we are having problems with are the A and B buttons. I don't really see problem with them. So it could have been just gunk. Yeah, I mean, these definitely don't look good, these button pads. So it could have been just gunk in the button pads. But we'll clean this board up anyway. Now in order to replace the analog sticks, I want to remove this whole board, so I'm going to get these wires unsoldered, and then we'll just have this board free. Now what we need to do is remove all of the solder out of these little junks right here. So I'm going to use some solder wick to do that. You can get all those ones and all of these ones. So once again, we're going to flush them up. I'm going to use some solder wick to wick up the solder off of these. And I think I'm going to use my hot air. We're just not getting, I mean, solder wick can work, and it does work on some of these joints, but I think hot air is we're just going to be better at getting those things off. So let's put that happen and see how that looks. Alright, and then that one. And we need to do the same with this one. There we go. Solder out of those holes, or attempt to, then we would be able to place our new analog stick. There we go. Alright, now with all those holes cleared, we can just set the new analog stick in, make sure all the holes are lined up, because we're not getting a hole in here. There we go. Okay, all in there. Now we need to make sure it's on there level, just like that. And once it is, we can solder this thing in. And put it in the book. Now we'll do the other side. And there we go. Now we can clean this all up. And then we can clean up all the buttons and get this thing reassembled. Okay, all cleaned up there. So let's clean up this board now. These buttons weren't having a problem, but I'm surprised they're really dirty. Okay, that's actually looking pretty good for these. So I don't think there's any other problems on the board itself. I think we need to clean up the buttons and the button pads. Hopefully that's all this board is. The button pad is pretty dirty. This is going to really help us. Now let's get these buttons cleaned up. The A button definitely has some, I don't know, build up on it. Yeah, same with the B button. And, oh, look at this. I just found that guy laying on my mat. So that must have fallen off one of these boards. So which one? That's the question. Oh man, this could be hard to find. Yeah, this is definitely not obvious. Wait a second, we got one over there. It looks about that size. So we got missing from over here somewhere? Okay. I'm gonna come over and pick it up. There we go. And I just realized I don't know where that piece went. So I'm gotta find that. And then hopefully we get it put back on. So I totally lost that piece. No idea where it is. Luckily, these are on other Xbox controllers. I've got a bunch of them sitting around that are just for spare parts, basically. So I just grabbed one off of a different controller for spare parts, and now I'm going to install it onto here. Okay, now with that installed, we can finally get this controller back together. Then we'll just use buttons installed.